Hello, Blue Jays fans. Hello, Blue Jays fans. And welcome to Sunny Side of the Dome. I'm your host, Karen Soutar, and I'm here to talk some Blue Jays baseball with you for the next half hour or so. Sunny Side of the Dome is brought to you by Jays from the Couch. We stream live Thursdays at 6 p.m. Usually, last week I was in Baltimore. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. But yes, you can find us on Jays from the Couch's Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter pages. And if you are following along live and you think of a question or comment, do send them all in. I really love the interaction with the audience. I think it makes the show just that much better. And if you're not able to catch the live version, but you still want to see what I have to say this week, then great. When you're ready for us, we're ready for you. You can catch the archive version on those same mediums, so Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, or you can download and listen as a podcast. Any quality podcast carrier has Jays from the Couch, and not just Sunny Side of the Dome, but the other shows as well. So if you like the content here, there's lots more where that came from. Hopefully you're already checking out the other shows. So the main podcast, which is Monday evenings at 7 p.m., and that's hosted by Shaun Doyle, senior editor, founder of Jays from the Couch. Always got lots of interesting stuff cooking for people to watch and listen to. And the other show is the On Fact Circle on Tuesdays at 6 p.m. That's hosted by my very unique colleague, Steve Feck, who's smart, fun, funny, very unique. Hey, I could just go on and on. I could spend the whole show talking about Steve and what a character he can be. But yes, so definitely tune in for those shows as well. Lots of good stuff to watch and listen to. You'll be entertained and hopefully informed a bit as well. So, how's it going, Blue Jays fans? Happy Thursday evening. Happy Blue Jays Day off. Hope everybody's having a nice day and finds things to do. I find when the Jays have a day off, I mean, they deserve their time off. They need their time off. Too many games in a row and they just get burnt out. As a fan, sometimes I find myself, excuse me. Sometimes I find myself sort of at loose ends, not really knowing what to do with my time. They're just such a big part of my life and what I do during my free time to entertain myself and so forth. Sorry, I'm allergic to the Jays not playing. That's what it is. Anyway, well, yes, hopefully we're all in pretty decent spirits. After the last series, they finally found a way to get back to winning series. So thank goodness for that, because it wasn't looking great for a while there. Again, I'll have a lot more on that a little later on in the show. So leading off, as always, transactions. And there have been a few since it's been a couple of weeks since I've done the show. So lots of goings on, lots of comings and goings, guys. Up, down, different things happening. So first off, and I really don't want to spend a lot of time dwelling on this one, but I would be remiss if I didn't mention Anthony Bass was designated for assignment by the Blue Jays, and then I'm assuming they did that seeing if another team would claim him, and that way they save what's left of his salary. He went unclaimed, and they just gave him his unconditional release. So he's gone from the organization. They're still paying his salary. If another team signs him, it would be for prorated major league minimum, and the Jays would be paying the rest. So again, it's a very difficult situation, and it's over now in terms of he's no longer with the organization. I am not at all cool with the things that he said and did, and the Jays took action. Many people think that they didn't take action soon enough, but eventually they did, and he is no longer with the team. And I will not miss Anthony Bass, the person. So in his place, when he was DFA'd, they activated Mitch White. And I really wondered about that part of the decision, bringing up Mitch White. I know that he was on the IL. I know that he's out of options, and sooner or later they would have been forced to make a decision with White. Um, I mean, it's certainly been a mixed bag, to say the least. He's gotten into 4 games. In his first 2 appearances, he allowed runs. So first game, 1.2 innings pitched, 2 earned runs allowed. Second game, 2 innings pitched, 1 earned run, and then his last 2 outings have actually been scoreless. So 1.2 innings, and then zero point 0.2 innings. I mean, his overall ERA, I was expecting it to be worse than it is. It's not terrible. It's 4.5. Again, I mean, the Blue Jays traded for Mitch White at the trade deadline last season. It looked like a decent enough move on paper. I mean, his stats with the Dodgers were reasonably good. I don't think anyone ever expected Cy Young-like numbers from White, but for a back end of the rotation guy or a swingman, his numbers were fairly decent. And with the Blue Jays, certainly last year, he couldn't come anything close to that. And then he's spent most of this season so far on the injured list. And now he's back with the Jays. So I can only hope, we can all only hope, that he continues to trend in the right direction. And yeah, I'm not really sure what they're going to do with him longer term once the sample size gets larger, and depending on performance, because again, it would be one thing if they could hide him at AAA like they did for part of last season when he didn't perform, but he's out of options now. So something to keep an eye on. Um, yeah, some more transactions. So Thomas Hatch, he was recalled, and he's since been sent back down. But interesting story, Thomas Hatch. He's gotten it. He's had already 2 stints with the Jays this season. He's gotten into 4 games, and perhaps surprisingly, he's yet to give up a run. Thomas Hatch, the Blue Jays acquired in a trade a few seasons ago, and he came to them as someone who looked like he had some talent, had a decent enough first season with them. In 2020, and the wheels have kind of fallen off for him since then. He really didn't do well last season, and wasn't doing great, or wasn't doing great to start the season at AAA. Has he found something? Maybe. I mean, now he's back at AAA. I wish the Jays could find a way to keep the guys that are actually performing, even if it's a smaller sample size. Like we need guys out here who can get major league hitters out. So again, something to keep an eye on. See if he'll be back at some point, and maybe he can stick around. Adam Simber spent a little bit of time on the paternity list. 3 days he came back. I didn't actually hear anything with Chris Bassett. It was somewhat well publicized that he and his wife, they had their second child, a boy. Mother and son were doing fine, so that's great. Didn't really hear anything about Adam Simber and how everything's going. Maybe they chose to keep it private. That's their family. That's their right, of course, if they want to keep it private. So all the best to Simber and his family. Hope everything went well. And yeah, he's another pitcher that unfortunately he's really struggled this season. And it's kind of a big question mark. What do you do with him? They traded for him 2 years ago prior to the deadline. He spent about a half a season with the Jays in 2021, a full season last year, and his results were good. He's not a high strikeout guy because of the way he throws. He's not a velocity guy. He relies on deception in his delivery and ground balls and things like that. And he did really well for a couple of seasons. This year, he just hasn't performed well. And again, I kind of hold my breath when he's out there, especially if it's any kind of a close game. He's the last guy I want to see because it could really go sideways in a heck of a hurry. Now, one interesting thing about Simber is that he has options. So the Blue Jays could send him to AAA and clear room on the major league roster for someone else who might perform better. But he has 6 years of major league service. And in reading the rules with regard to optioning players, a player with 5 or more years major league service has to agree to being optioned. They can actually decline being optioned. So I don't know if it's something the Blue Jays have considered. I don't know if they've already talked to Simber about the possibility, and if so, what he might have had to say about it. So I just think going forward, A, they need to make the playoffs, and B, they need to succeed in the playoffs. And they got to get there. They got to have guys that they can rely on in order to help them get there. So, again, something to keep an eye on going forward. So some other pitching news. Zach Pop, he's become a begun a rehab assignment. So he started at Dunedin. They've since moved him up to Buffalo. So I'm hopeful that means that the rehab assignment is going well, and they're happy with his progress. So he's a AAA, and I'm really hoping that he'll be coming back soon, because to me, he's someone who can be a leverage relief option with the Toronto Blue Jays. He was doing really well early in the season, and then a little later in the season, he wasn't doing as well anymore. And I don't know if that was injury related or what exactly was going on, but I have a lot of hope where Zach Pop is concerned. So hoping he can come back sooner than later. Trent Thornton was called up recently. They've got a bit of a revolving door. They've also had Bowden Francis, who's been he was sent down, then recalled because there was an IL stand, and then sent back down again. So he's gotten into 3 games. He hasn't done too badly, 3.68 ERA. Trent Thornton, he's called back up. He's been into 1 game and pitched a couple of innings, not given up any runs. So these guys that are maybe kind of dark horses, and you don't really know what to expect from them. But to me, I'm saying they need guys up here who are performing well. So they've got to find a way to get them onto the roster and maybe hang on to them for a bit. And I don't know. Yeah, it's interesting. So I think that's pretty much it for the pitching. As far as the position players, so Danny Jansen had gone on a rehab assignment. He didn't need all that long or anything. He's been called back up. So we've got Tyler Heineman, who I'll get to in a minute. He was sent back down when Danny Jansen was activated, but now he's been recalled because, unfortunately, Alejandro Kirk is on the injured list. We're revolving door with the catchers there. So Danny Jansen, it's great to have him back. He brings a lot of interesting things to the table. So he has a 710 OPS, which really for a catcher is not all that bad. And then if you know the Blue Jays, if you've followed their players and you know Danny Jansen's career, he's just if there's a streakier hitter in all of Major League Baseball, I'd love to know who it is, because Danny Jansen at times, maybe early in the season, he can be so ice cold, you wonder if he's ever going to get a hit again. And then he just gets red hot. I mean, for a while there, you couldn't stop him from hitting home runs. So yeah, his overall OPS on the season, 710. In his last 30 games, 791. In his last 15 games, 860. And in his last 7, and even 1,000. So welcome back, Danny Jansen. Yeah, just keep doing what you're doing. Contribute every way you can. It's great to have him back. Yes, so Tyler Heineman, he was, as I said, he was optioned and then called back up. So really, honestly, I have no complaints about Tyler Heineman. I think that was a pretty good move that the Blue Jays made, excuse me, reacquiring him for some catching depth, which clearly they have needed. So, Tyler Heineman, I mean, it's a very small sample size in 8 games, but I mean, you can't complain about what he's done with the bat. He has an 856 OPS. 308 average, 471 on base percentage. So he knows the strike zone. He's got some patience. He'll take his walks. And yeah, I mean he's fine behind the plate. I haven't seen him do anything wrong that's making me think, oh my goodness, when are they getting rid of this guy? So yeah, great to have him. Glad that he's back with the org. And yeah, Alejandro Kirk had to go on the injured list. Unfortunately, he suffered a hand laceration when he was hit by a pitch. So hopefully, knock on wood, the x-rays were negative. Hopefully, it isn't all that serious, and he'll be back before too long, because Alejandro Kirk, we know when he's healthy, is a very valuable part of this team. He really has a history as a hitter. He's kind of been up and down a bit this season, but I still very much believe on him. He was an all-star last season, and I still think he's got that same kind of talent. Excuse me just a moment. All right, so yes, more transactions just to round that out. So Nathan Lukes was optioned to AAA. Nathan Lukes has been in 23 games. It almost doesn't seem like it's been that many. I checked the stats. I'm like, I had to take a second look at that. But only 19 at bats in 23 games. So it's not like he has been the starting player in many games. I mean, he was the last man on the roster. I think he gets used more than anything in pinch running situations, maybe later in the game when they need some more runs. And his OPS is 524, so he really wasn't playing all that much. Maybe he can get a little more playing time in AAA. Maybe he can boost those numbers a bit, whether he comes back or ends up with another organization at some points. Certainly, all the best to him either way. And we saw a major league debut, kind of interesting, something that a lot of people had talked about, people that I follow on Twitter, other Jays fans and that. But Spencer Horwitz, who's done quite well with the bats in the minor leagues for the last couple of seasons. He finally got a shot with the Toronto Blue Jays, and he came up and first at bat, he hit a single. So way to go, got the ball, of course. Also had a couple of walks in that game, and overall, so he's gotten into 3 games and certainly not done bad as far as someone who he's a rookie at Major League Baseball. So sometimes rookies struggle out of the gates. Very, very small sample size, of course, but 250 batting average, 400 on base percentage. So again, he's good at taking the walks and getting on base. 250 slugging. So the hits that he has all been singles, and that in a way mirrors his numbers at AAA. Good batting average, very good on base percentage, slugging percentage, not his strongest thing. But yeah, he's a left-handed hitter. He DH'd when he played for the Jays. He has mostly played first base in the minors, a little bit of left field. So if I don't think this will be Spencer Horwitz's last crack at Major League Baseball. If you ask me, I've got a pretty strong suspicion that the Jays brought him up in order to showcase him, that they are looking at making trades in order to upgrade the team, and this is one possible trade chip. I mean, he's got some strengths. There's also some other areas of his game that are maybe so-so, but you know what? If he goes to a team that isn't necessarily contending, maybe he could be a project. Maybe you can still work on certain aspects of his game, and maybe he could be a useful player to another team. So we'll see. All the best to him either way. All right. Well, that took a bit of the show there, but we're up to date as far as the transactions. So, on to the heart of the order. And my theme, my topic for this evening is light at the end of the tunnel. So, our Blue Jays, my goodness, they've been so up and down this season. It's really been a roller coaster ride. Remember back a few series ago when the Blue Jays took on the defending champion Houston Astros at home in a 4-game series. And they won that series 3 games to 1. And things seemed like they were in pretty good shape overall for the Blue Jays. And it seemed to me, knock on wood, it's not that they're going to go the rest of the season and not lose any more games, but things felt pretty decent since then. And then there were the next 3 series: Minnesota, Baltimore, Texas. And they could only manage a 3-6 record. Not what we were hoping for from our guys who are looking to get back into a playoff spot, hopefully stay there, maybe move up in the standings, and not only get to October baseball, but get there in as good a position as possible, and hopefully win some games once they're there. So 3-6, that wasn't the way to do it. And then there was this past Monday, the first game against a red hot Miami Marlins team, and that might have been rock bottom. They lost that game 11-0. Pretty much nothing went right for them. It was their first game all season when they were shut out. The pitching was awful. The hitting obviously couldn't get anything done. The defense, they had some lapses. And at this point, you're wondering what the heck is going on. There's an old expression: it's always darkest before the dawn, because that was a pretty bad game, and our Blue Jays bounced back, managed to win the next two games and win that series, and looked pretty good winning those next 2 games. So there are people, I hear people all the time saying, I'm giving up on this team, I'm not going to watch anymore, they're not any good, they were overrated. And I don't see it that way. There are areas for concern, but I still very much believe in their talent. And I think that there are things that they can do, should do, need to do in order to plug those holes. Well, one of the biggest things that they need is something with their 5th starter spot. So as we all know, Alek Manoah was supposed to be the #1 starter based on how he performed the last couple of seasons. A lot of people predicted he would regress. I don't think anyone predicted he would fall off the cliff, so to speak. I think Bob Ritchie said something like that. He had an article not that long ago about the rotation, and yeah. But anyway, so he's, as we know, he's been sent down to the Florida Complex League. They are certainly working with him. It's not like they've given up on him or forgotten about him. Apparently, he's thrown side sessions, a simulated game or 2, and that if things continue to go as well as they think they are, the next step could be pitching in a minor league game as early as next week. So one step at a time. I want to see Alek Manoah back, but I want to see him back when he's ready to be back. I want him to be pitching like he has in the past, getting major league hitters out, being dominant, giving his team a really, really good chance to win. So whenever that happens, I don't think they should rush him. If he's truly ready sooner than later, then fantastic. But however long it takes to get him ready. But so there's that. There's Hyun-Jin Ryu, who's coming back from Tommy John surgery. So he's already thrown side sessions and I believe live BP, and haven't heard yet anything about him going on a rehab assignment. I mean, again, that'll happen when it's ready. And the same with Chad Green. So both of those pitchers had Tommy John surgery last June. As we know, the recovery period from Tommy John is about a year. So the 2 of them are pretty much on track, maybe a little bit ahead of schedule as far as already having been throwing and so forth. So When will they come back? If they come back, how effective they will be. That the Blue Jays need some pitching help, so they need something to solidify that rotation, because right now they're going with a bullpen day. Haven't won either of those games. Fortunately, they've got a couple of days off, so for the rest of this month, looks like they're skipping over that spot in the rotation. They're going with a four-man rotation for the short term. I mean, they're pitchers that, with a few ups and downs, have mostly been really great for our Jays. Certainly led by Kevin Gosman, and then Chris Bassett, Jose Barrios, Yusei Kikuchi. Yeah, I mean, the four of them, can't ask for a lot more from them rather than what they've given us. They're, I think, the biggest reason the Jays are still in contention. So, yeah, there's that. And again, upgrades to certain spots in the bullpen, whether that's Adam Simber, unfortunately, Jimmy Garcia. He was terrific last season. He really hasn't been this season. And this is a veteran pitcher that the Blue Jays picked up as a free agent, so it's not like they can option him either. So I don't really know what they're going to do, whether they're going to stick with Simber, Garcia, maybe Mitch White for the rest of the season, or if they're going to find a way to clear them from the roster, whether they come up with a mysterious injury, end up on the IL, whether Simber agrees to go down to AAA, or worst case, I mean, do you cut ties with someone if he just isn't performing and you have better options? I don't know what they're going to do, but definitely bears watching. Excuse me a moment. All right. Well, yes, I've been covering lots of different things there, and we're coming toward the end of the show. So I think this is a good time for Through Blue Jay Colored Glasses. So yes, lots going on. As I say, I don't believe that we should be giving up on the Toronto Blue Jays just yet. There's a lot of baseball still to be played, and now that this part of the schedule is done, they've got a few series coming up that really, if the Blue Jays are serious, they should be able to win a lot of those games, knock on wood. They can't take anybody for granted. They shouldn't. They have to be serious. But I think they can do it. So next up are the Oakland A's, the San Francisco Giants, the last place Boston Red Sox. Oakland's also a last place team. Chicago White Sox, Detroit Tigers, and then it's the All-Star break. So I'm very hopeful that the Blue Jays will go back to a really good run. They've already had a couple of really good runs this season, and I think that they can do it again. Yes, I was going to mention about Baltimore. So I went to the Baltimore series. Nice ballpark. I'm glad that we got there. And yeah, a little bit of an adventure. Didn't get our luggage back until yesterday, even though we got back last Friday. But that's a whole other story. So interesting to visit, and yeah, another ballpark off the bucket list. Um, but anyway, yes, to the Blue Jays, back to the Blue Jays and their season. So if you tune into my show regularly and you saw the last episode, you might remember me making a bold prediction that the next time I would do a Sunny Side of the Dome, the Blue Jays would have gotten back into a playoff position. They didn't quite make it, but they're this close. They're currently tied with the LA Angels, um, and they're right out of a wild card spot. They're half a game behind the Houston Astros. They're one game behind the New York Yankees, 5.5 games back of the Baltimore Orioles. So they've got a ways to go to catch them, but it is still doable, and I still believe in this team. When the Blue Jays won a couple of days ago, and they interviewed Dalton Varsho after the game, and he said something that I found very interesting. He said, "We believe that our A game is better than a lot of teams' A games." And I found that interesting because I've been saying some very similar things all through the season, that when the Blue Jays are playing their best baseball, there's nobody that they can't beat. He just phrased it a little bit differently. Unfortunately, as we know, their A game isn't always the one that shows up. But I think they're gonna pull it together. I think they're gonna find ways to plug these holes that they need. I think there are going to be trades. There might not be a huge blockbuster, but I see them making 2 or 3 trades of significance to fill some remaining holes. And I think us Blue Jay fans are going to be very happy with what we see from our team down the stretch and into the playoffs. So once again, hope everybody continues to tune in. And I think it's going to be really exciting. And speaking of tuning in, thank you all for tuning in to my show. That's all I've got for you today. Let's go Blue Jays. Let's hope they keep the ball rolling tomorrow when they get back to playing. And I'll see you again next Thursday.